Okay, joining me in Washington, D.C. now is the Senior Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Behnam Taleblu. Behnam, welcome along. Thanks for your company. So much to talk about with Iran today. Of course, the Crown Prince was here in DC. The live active protest outside the embassy in London right now. Have you seen any of those pictures? Does it surprise you, the kind of, I guess, the brutality the police are inflicting on protesters? They'll have their defences, the police, but there are some pretty tasty scenes going on, people getting bloodied and battered, protesters.
Yeah, and pleasure to be with you again. No doubt Iranians, especially in the diaspora, know how brutal this regime can be. This is quite literally why they fled. So the brutality that they see on their screens, that they hear on their phones, selectively, of course, when they can hear back from their friends and family in Iran, are animating them to come out when they don't risk the kind of bullets and live fire that their friends and families and compatriots do back in Iran. That's why there's protests not just outside the Iranian embassy in London, but really around the world. The community has really come together to push for Donald Trump to keep his word and help defend the Iranian people and also take out the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism. This is not an act of charity. This is an act of strategy.
Yeah, and that was what I posed to the Crown Prince today. I said, look, in the longer question, which we haven't shown, it was we've had Iranian accused terrorists on their way to allegedly blow up the Israeli embassy. There's even a foreign minister, former Iranian foreign minister, who backed the fatwa on Salman Rushdie, who praised Soleimani after his death, living in North London. So we talked about that with the Crown Prince, and he said, look, a win for the Iranian people here, the fall of the Islamic regime, isn't just a win for Iran, it's a win for Great Britain, it's a win for the West as well. He did call, though, for US intervention, military action. He said the regime will fall regardless, but it will happen a lot sooner if President Trump gets involved. What's your take on that? Will it happen?
And more lives could be saved. I think President Trump has everybody where he wants them, however. Whether you're a U.S. ally, a U.S. adversary, you have to look to President Trump. 2025 is proof that the president can cultivate strategically uncertainty to force the adversary to hedge, potentially even to lull them into a false sense of security. President Trump's rhetoric is changing on Iran, is softening, but the posture is actually hardening. As you know, right now, there is the USS Abraham Lincoln, the carrier strike group, headed from the South China Sea, assumedly towards the Persian Gulf to bolster some of President Trump's red lines and deterrence. I think there was some rhetorical issues with what the president may have said about the Iranians having a stay of execution for 800, given the fact that they killed 2,035 via death penalty last year. But I think, time will tell. If the Islamic Republic thinks it can bet against President Trump, that is not a wise bet to make.
Although we have whispers from the likes of Saudi, Qatar, I think maybe Oman as well, Egypt, that they do not want President Trump to get involved. They cite economic turmoil, destabilization of the region. Will he ignore them? We'll have to ignore them, won't he?
I mean, no doubt both he and those countries, which are major U.S. partners, fear a contagion effect of conflict. But we are already in a conflict zone. The Islamic Republic has been firing ballistic missiles at U.S. bases last year, at U.S. bases 6 years ago this month, as well as has fostered instability in many of those countries by creating or co-opting terror groups, and of course has bolstered the Houthis to fire at Saudi for many years, and directly fired from its own territory in 2019 drones and cruise missiles at Saudi Arabia. So if these countries think the status quo, keeping the Islamic power equals stability, I got a bridge to sell them with their name on it.
I guess the problem is, though, for President Trump, and I'm hearing that there are some cabinet members saying this to President Trump directly in his ear, saying, look, we need to start focusing on domestic US issues now. The midterms are coming up in a couple of months. We need to focus on our communications to the American people. Why is the cost of living going down? Why is your quality of life getting better? What does it mean for you, the American people, by us getting rid of Maduro with operations in Venezuela? Why does it benefit the American people to get involved in Iran? So I think that's the reluctance at the moment from the administration, or at least President Trump, to directly get involved. But if you think there is going to be action, Behnam, when will it take place?
I mean, no doubt there couldn't be a more direct benefit to the American people if the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, which has a bounty on the head of the U.S. president as we speak, has fatwas against them as we speak, and for a decade and a half has worked with everything from Mexican drug cartels in the south to Canadian biker gangs in the north to try to wreak havoc on U.S. territory. So trust me, this issue touches American national security at the core, and that is a point the Trump administration needs to be making from the bully pulpit, from the campaign trail, as well as anybody who cares about U.S. national security, left or right.
Yeah, and by the way, let's just be frank as well. The same with Venezuela with the oil. There's going to be oil in Iran as well, so I guess your gas prices are going down. Can we talk about the IRGC? Because the Crown Prince today spoke about the fact that there are many European nations, Britain included, who haven't prescribed described the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organisation. Why do you think that is? What is the reluctance from Britain to do that?
Well, in Britain in particular, there is this political football between the Prime Minister's office, the Home Office, and the Foreign Office. And of course, whenever the other party is out of power, Labour or the Conservatives will push for the prescription. But it's all about when the rubber hits the road. I think given that this is a costly decision, given that it's a highly politicized decision, the fact that it could come now would put hugely wind beneath the wings of Iranian protesters, hugely wind beneath the wings of Iranian dissidents, and say that Great Britain is not afraid to call a terrorist full stop. And then, of course, we have all the data that MI5 has put out about the attempted and thwarted plots by the IRGC, sometimes themselves, sometimes through foreign nationals, sometimes through criminal cutouts on UK soil. This also is about UK national security first and foremost.
Behnam, great stuff. Really appreciate your company. Thank you. Come back when you have a chance to discuss this further. And isn't it funny, you mentioned about the prescription of the IRGC. Keir Starmer, so quick to regard Palestine as a state when it was appropriate to virtue signal to the world, much to the behest of the likes of Secretary Rubio and so on, saying that you nearly scuppered that Gaza peace deal by coming out with Macron and recognising Palestine as a state. Why don't you do the same thing here? Why don't you do the same thing, get get some authenticity and some intent on the go, and prescribe the IRGC? That would do the world of good for the Iranian protesters, who are of course being slaughtered in their droves. Interesting how we can be so fast with one topic and so lacklustre and slow with another. Behnam, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Right, let's take